Rena Carcillo, Chopping Onions, Take 2.
Hi, I'm Rena Eats with developmentoftaste.com, and we are here for week 2 of our weekend techniques, and we're going to talk today about chopping an onion. Last week we learned how to hold our knife, remembering to use our thumb and our index finger. This week we're going to learn how to chop one of the hardest things to cut, which is a roundish sort of onion. So I've got my favorite red onion right here, and I want you to notice that I've sliced it through the root of the onion. Instead of slicing it the way that we would normally think to do it through the middle, we're actually going to slice it through the root, and that's key because it's going to hold it together and give us a more uniform chop. Now before we start cutting, I just want to remind you why this technique is so important. Cooks in a kitchen will spend 3 to 6 months just chopping vegetables before they're ever allowed to cook. They have to prove that they have the basic techniques down before they're allowed to do the more complicated things. So I don't want you to think that these are just elementary, my dear Watson. These are important techniques that you need to learn in order to get uniformly chopped vegetables so you can get the best flavor possible. So once you've sliced your onion through to the root, you're just going to peel it. Set your peels aside. Those make a great addition to your stocks. And then you're going to take your knife and slice almost up to the root. Now understand that this is not a straight 90-degree up and down motion. It's more of a sideways motion because this is a cylinder type half circle item. So we're going to slice through almost to the root. It's better to err on the side of caution because if you slice through that root, you've ruined your adhesive, if you will. So slice it through. Notice that I'm actually using my index finger as a guide here. I can't promise that a chef would do that, but it makes cutting the onion much easier. Then you're going to take your knife and you're going to cut the opposite direction, usually twice, unless you're working with a really big onion or you want a really fine chop. And then once you do that, you can do your basic chop, remembering to keep your finger in place on your knife to control how large or small your dice is, all the way back up to the root. Once you've done that, you can just discard your root. You're done with that. And take a look at what you've created here. If you break it apart with your hands a little bit at the layers, you can see how big your dice is here. If it's too big, feel free to go back through it with your knife. Just know that this is where you start to lose your uniformity. So if you're caramelizing onions or making burnt onions, this is not a good idea. You really want to leave them uniform. But for most other recipes, you're okay. Just bring them back together again and chop them until they fit your needs. Chopping onions is one of the most difficult techniques to get right because of the round nature of that particular vegetable. So give yourself a few tries. Onions are not very expensive. Buy a bag and work on them on a Sunday afternoon. If you look below, you'll see my favorite way to use red onions in my red onion jam. So use that recipe this week. Don't forget to link up your recipe in the Linksy, and we'll see you next week when we talk about how to slice eggplants, zucchinis, and other long-form vegetables. I'm Rena Eats with developmentoftaste.com, and we have been working through weekend techniques with Jacques Pepin.